system of fair and honest democracy before granting the country independence in 1960.
Look, we are not kids. We are mature people, and the country is mature. We are giants of Africa.
But according to our document, the unpublished memoirs of a former British colonial officer, London's parting gift was, in reality, a lesson in how to rig the polls and deceive the people.
This is the story of evil committed by kind, nice, decent British politicians. They sought to keep Britain from bankruptcy and found a solution in the mineral-rich empire on the point of independence. It was necessary to bend the rules, and sadly, in due course, the rules
In 1956, Nigerian children sang to welcome the Queen as she toured some of their country's new democratic institutions. And in January 1960, on his way to South Africa to make his famous speech warning that a wind of change was blowing through the continent, the British Prime Minister, Harold Macmillan, stopped off in Lagos to give the Nigerian Parliament some pearls of wisdom from the world's longest-standing democracy.
So long as we value the freedom of speech, freedom to express our opinions, I know of no better system than a fairly elected parliament for giving people the sort of government they want.
Those who got in the way were innocent, like the colonial peoples, but both had to be dealt with quite harshly.
Back in the 1950s, Harold Smith, an idealistic young Oxford graduate, was settling into life as a British colonial official in the Nigerian capital Lagos with his wife Carol and their young daughter. Important regional elections were to be held that year, followed by a national poll 3 years later, just ahead of independence. Harold had his part to play in the preparations, drawing up new laws aimed at ensuring that Britain left Nigeria an orderly and stable place. But his faith in the integrity of the project was soon to be shattered.
In 1956, I was in Lagos on the staff of the Ministry of Labour when I received the secret file, which had a minute which ordered me to get involved in the regional elections which were taking place. It told me to take all the vehicles of the Ministry of Labour, all the staff, the clerical staff, and as many senior staff as I could find, to act on behalf of the minister. And the chap was called Festus Akoti Igbo, and carry out the ministers, their appointing ministers' instructions, and get his party colleagues elected.
Festus was a flamboyant political figure who'd been appointed Minister of Labour. He was also treasurer of one of Nigeria's main political parties, the NCNC, which had its power base in the east. Harold Smith says he was shocked to be asked to interfere in the election on behalf of the NCNC candidates, standing for seats in the minister's constituency.
To have cars and trucks in the bush at all gave you tremendous prestige. All people had were bikes. If a fleet of vehicles with maybe 30 or 40 staff of clerks and administrators had suddenly descended, they'd have made a very big impact. This was official, this was government stuff.
Why did the British want you to help ensure that this man, or at least his colleagues, were elected?
Because the plan was to put the North in government, in power. The elections were just to be fixed.
A very serious accusation that Britain, which advertised its withdrawal from empire as a model of fairness and democracy, was allegedly rigging, or at the very least, giving advantage to a favoured party in the polls. Can such an allegation be substantiated? I took Mr. Smith's claims to the director of the Centre of African Studies at Oxford University, Professor David Anderson.
In the 1950s, virtually all the British colonies were moving towards independence in Africa, and there were elections taking place everywhere. It would not be unfair to say that in almost every single colony, the British attempted to manipulate the result to their advantage. Indeed, it would be surprising if, as the colonial power, they'd not done so.
At this time, Nigeria was divided into 3 regions, each with distinct and often conflicting tribal and cultural identities. Partition was a very real threat, and given their experiences in India, something the British were determined to avoid. Traditionally, the colonial power had enjoyed a close relationship with the largely Islamic north of Nigeria. This part of the country was more conservative and less developed than the rest. Here, the British operated a system of indirect rule, governing through the local emirs. Professor David Anderson.
The north of Nigeria was not only largely Islamic, it was deeply conservative. And therefore, it was ideologically going to oppose the Pan-Africanism and internationalism that tended to mark southern politics in Nigeria. So for sure, the British saw the north as an important bulwark against what they might have termed unnecessary radicalism.
And the fear of radical political ideas, in other words, communism, was key to British policy in Africa in the 1950s.
Communism was thought of as a very serious threat in West Africa because the kind of socialism it fed upon in Africa was driven by massive poverty and very low levels of education. Therefore, British analysts at the time thought West African populations were vulnerable to communism.
In order to ensure that, come independence, their interests would be represented by their conservative friends in the north, the British had virtually created and strongly backed a political party for the region, the NPC. But it could not hope to win enough votes nationally to win outright, so the British needed to ensure that they had the support of either the Eastern or Western parties. This would explain why Harold Smith claims he was ordered to divert resources to help candidates standing for the Party of the East, the NCNC, led by one of the founding fathers of Nigerian nationalism, Dr. Ezekwe, also known as Zik.
They had to fix Zik, and of course there was stuff they could have got him for, sent him to prison, but they didn't. He was forced to do a deal with the North. This great nationalist had to do a deal with these illiterate peasants in the north, and that's what happened.
Whatever the true motives of the British administration, to this day Harold Smith is adamant that the order to interfere with the elections came from the highest authority in the colony, the Governor-General himself, Sir James Robertson. Recorded here during the royal visit in 1956.
To the Queen's Most Excellent Majesty, I have the honour to offer to your Majesty and to His Royal Highness, the Duke of Edinburgh, our most loyal welcome, and to express our deep and sincere appreciation of your gracious presence today.
He was a thug, and he had a terrible reputation, Robertson. He wasn't talking about people when he talked about Africans. They weren't people, they weren't human beings. We loved Africa. But these people who came in to do this job were a different breed. These were the ex-SOE and MI6, and they thought that they were really tough. And they were.
Smith claims several of his colleagues were also asked to interfere in the elections, and they reluctantly fell in line, leaving him alone in his refusal to obey Robertson's orders. Isolated but still defiant, he was finally granted an audience with his boss at Government House.
I go up and I see him, and the first thing he says, I want you to know that everything that you've alleged about the elections is correct. I'm telling you this because you know far too much, and I want you to know how much trouble you're in. The colonial service is just like the army. You know what happens if you disobey orders in active service, and that's what's going to happen to you. I thought, I'm shocked. And this big guy, I was so angry that I really wouldn't have been surprised if he pulled out a pistol and shot me.
There's a huge array of files here. Are these all your correspondence on this side?
In the spare room of Harold and Carol Smith's home, piles of paperwork fill a large metal filing cabinet, much of it copies of unanswered letters to the great and the good, detailing Harold's allegations.
Doing this for many years.
With no recordings of the conversations he claims took, no copies of the orders he says he was given, he's unable to prove the serious claims he's making. The Smiths have fought a long, lonely and largely fruitless battle to have his story heard, but with nothing on paper and all those who could back up his story dead, why should anyone believe him? His wife, Carol.
You're quite right. We have not got written evidence and things we can say, there you are. Well, I know Harold's telling the truth. You either believe us or you don't.
What makes you so convinced that Harold isn't mistaken on this?
I've known him, I've been married to him 55 years. I know what he's like. I know the sort of person he is. I know the sort of values he holds. I don't think I would have had the courage to do what he's done, but at least I've had the courage to stay and support him in what he's doing.
Most of the people were elected unopposed because they tended to arrest the opposition, to exile them and beat them up and sometimes even kill them if they kept pushing their luck.
Academic and novelist Patrick Wilmot taught sociology at Ahmadu Bello University in Nigeria for 18 years. He believes Smith's allegations expose only a small part of the lengths British colonial officials were prepared to go to in the North in an effort to ensure that Britain's favoured party, the NPC, got elected unopposed.
The British were in control, the so-called native authority. The emirs, the local police, all of that was under British control and supervision. These people, they could have been removed, they could have been stopped at any time, but they were actually encouraged because the British wanted to hand over to them and they wanted them to control the northern region, which was the most powerful region in the country.
But you'd imagine that a government may have official control of an area, but it wouldn't always know what exactly people are doing on the ground in terms of the sort of thuggery you're talking about.
The British were completely aware because they had their officials at every level in the police, the security services, they had control of the army. The key thing was to prevent people from running against you.
What evidence do you have for these allegations?
No, these are not allegations. If you go to Nigeria, everybody from the professors in the university to the people in the streets will tell you that this has happened. I mean, there are history books written, but most of these history books will not have the sort of knowledge that people who will talk to you in Nigeria have.
Time to look for answers in Nigeria then. Children play behind the Reformed Christian Church of God in Arima town in southern Nigeria, outside the home of a man who's been part of the struggle for freedom and democracy in Nigeria all his life.
I'm Comrade Che Ibegura. I am now 74 years old. I'll be clocking 75 on November 16 this year.
On the walls are pictures of the leaders of Nigeria's independence movement, as well as a poster of his namesake, the Cuban revolutionary Che Guevara. In the 1950s, when Nigeria was still under British rule, he was a trade union leader and a member of Dr. Azikwe's NCNC, with strong opinions about the real intentions of the colonial power.
By 1956, I was 24 years old. So as at that time, I was an activist. I started to draw political inspiration when I was about 20. See, I'm from a Christian background and believed in justice. And I know quite well that their intention was not to develop us.
Che Ibegura believes that Nigeria's first democratic elections were far from free and fair under British rule, and that little has changed since they left.
Nigerians just got what was already on ground from the British. They started operating from what they saw. Whatever we are trying to experience from Nigeria now was the structure laid down by the British.
Harold Smith claims that he was asked by the country's governor to help ensure that a favoured candidate was elected fits with Che's memory of those early Nigerian elections.
Money was flowing to the north, both from the British government, the supporters from the British angle and from the Arab world. No master has ever given his slave the opportunity to rival him. Nigeria is a British baby. They can't just allow Nigeria to play their hands freely. Otherwise, why are they colonial masters?
I've been looking through the papers of some of those colonial masters to see what they were prepared to say about their motives and their methods when it came to Nigeria's first elections, and they make interesting reading, like this letter from one Sir Peter Smithers.
I was Parliamentary Private Secretary of the Colonial Office through almost the whole period of decolonisation. I was present at most of the negotiations for independence, including that of Nigeria.
A secret agent, MP, and diplomat, Sir Peter was a dashing figure, rumoured to be the model for Ian Fleming's James Bond. And in this letter, he details his part in the shaping of independent Nigeria, and he makes a frank admission about British attitudes to the leaders in the north, the Kano rulers.
The attraction of the Kano rulers was that they had long and successful experience of government. They therefore offered an obvious choice to head the new experiment. It was, in fact, difficult at the time to see an alternative for the early stages of independence.
Sir Peter died last year at the age of 92. Sir James Robinson, the Governor-General of Nigeria at independence, and the man Harold Smith alleges ordered him to interfere with the electoral process, died in 1983. But again, his memoirs suggest that he did not always play by the rules. Recalling Nigeria's first general election in 1959, he writes that before all the counting had finished, rumours began to circulate that the NCNC from the east and the Action Group in the west were getting together and might form a coalition. Now, this would be a disaster for Britain's hopes of the Northern Party, the NPC, taking power. Sir James was alarmed to discover that even though there were a number of seats still to be declared, if the Action Group and the NCNC formed a coalition, they would have a majority in the House of Representatives.
I believe this could be very dangerous for Nigeria's future. As from all I'd learned of the Northerners, they might well decide to leave the Federation, for they would not readily accept a national government of Southern parties.
According to Sir James, as Governor-General under the Constitution, he was required to appoint as Prime Minister the person who seemed to him most likely to command a majority in the House of Representatives. In his opinion, even though the count was not yet over, this was the northern leader, Abu Bakr. And so, after a brief discussion, he invited him to form a government.
And I did so on the grounds that the leader of the party with the greatest number of seats was surely most likely to be able to form a government which would win the support of the House. As far as I remember now, I took this action entirely on my own and did not consult the Secretary of State, for the matter was urgent and could not wait.
So, by his own admission, Sir James Robertson was determined to see the North in control at independence and was prepared to bend the rules to achieve this. But were the British prepared to go as far as interfering in the voting process itself? If so, how was this done? There are those who believe the British had laid the foundations for the electoral success of the North years before by falsifying the results of a national census. Professor David Anderson.
In the 1950s, it was certainly to the advantage of the British to do, as you've described, to increase the population of the North, because it would shift the relative balance of power in the Assembly.
The suggestion that the British were anything other than impartial arbitrators of Nigeria's independence is not popular with veterans of the colonial service, like Gerald Summerhays, who worked in Nigeria from 1952 to 1981, starting out as an assistant district officer before rising to permanent secretary of a ministry in the north. He's adamant that neither he nor anyone he worked with interfered in any way with local elections held in his area, though he does remember talk that the census had been fiddled.
Well, there was various allegations going on. There was one, which I remember featuring in a newspaper, alleging that a village of 5,000 people had been discovered in one area which had not been counted previously. Well, that sounded, shall we say, a trifle unlikely. The more general allegations were that parts of districts were counted twice, and allegations were made that this was done. I have no knowledge where it was or not. The only place I do know where it wasn't done is where I was dealing with it.
How likely do you think it is that this happened in the north?
The answer is no. Out of the question.
Why is that?
because it was controlled by the British administration. The British administration would not have done that.
Well, it's the British administration that's being accused of collaborating with local people to ensure that was done for Britain's own interest.
Well, they can accuse it as much as they like, I'm afraid. There's so many it's so easy to make accusations of that type. The only thing I can say, but I was actively involved in it, and I knew the other people who were involved in it, and many of them, and I do not believe that one of them, for one moment, would ever have done anything like this.
But you can't be sure they didn't, can you?
You can't be certain of anything, can you, unless you see it yourself? Although if there had been any involvement of that, there would have been some form of policy statements, would have been some form of suggestions from above that should have been done, and I would have heard that myself, because I don't think for one moment they would have given it just to one or two people. One would have heard it widely, and I did not hear it, and in fact I've been absolutely horrified to the mere thought of it.
It's very difficult to find evidence that elections have been rigged. People tend not to write about these things. If one sees ballot boxes being stuffed, voters being bussed around, if one uncovers fraud on the electoral roll, these are all forms of proof. But the elections in Nigeria in 1959, none of those things were reported.
But it seems that finding the evidence is perhaps less of a problem than actually getting my hands on it. Amongst the hundreds of files housed in London's National Archives that cover this period of British rule in Nigeria are two marked closed for 100 years. They deal with the role of both the Governor-General, Sir James Robertson, and the leader of the NCNC, Dr. Ezekwe, but aren't due to be open to the public for another half a century. I've put in a request under the Freedom of Information Act to view them now, but I'm still awaiting a response, as is Professor David Anderson.
Clearly someone in the British government, when those files were classified, didn't want us historians to know something about what they contain. And that raises my suspicions that those files might contain information about whatever deals were brokered between the British government and the NCNC. Because it is certainly the case that the NCNC could not have won the election support it did without British support, or nor that it could have formed a coalition with the MPC at independence without British support. So I would love to see what's in those two files about Sir James Robertson and Dr. Ezekwe.
Nigeria gained its independence from Britain on October the 1st, 1960.
It's a very touching moment as the Union Jack is brought down in darkness and the Nigerian flag is gradually taking its place.
Whether engineered by the British or not, as the Union flag came down, the North was in the driving seat. The leader of the NPC, Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, was Prime Minister. His coalition partner, Dr. Ezekwe, took the role of Governor-General and later President.
And on the morning of Nigerian independence, greetings to you all, fellow countrymen. The deed has been done. It is finished.
But hopes for Nigeria's future were soon to be dashed. Continued tensions between the three regions, exacerbated by the dominance of the North, contributed to the political instability that led to a coup, a counter-coup, and, within 7 years, the Biafran Civil War that cost the lives of as many as 3 million Nigerians, largely through starvation and disease. In his memoirs, Harold Smith records the fate of their cook and their nanny caught up in the chaos.
Grace and William worked for us, and we trusted them and treated them as friends. We loved them. We left Africa and were very worried for them. Nigeria was on the brink.
Well, thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, according to your time zone. I'm so happy to be here today from the IPOB Asia discussion class with the indigenous people of Biafra all over the world, ably led by Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. We welcome you for today's discussion class, whereby we are looking at the court cases the litigations that the indigenous people of Biafra have initiated in different parts of the world in order for the freedom of the indigenous people of Biafra through a United Nations conducted or supervised referendum, which our leader, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, has been crying for us to leave the barren and non-progressive Nigeria state. As we all know, the Nigerian state has been occupying the land of Biafra since 1970. And because of that, there has been series and series of agitations for the liberation of the people of Biafra. We have had series of engagements which the indigenous people of Biafra initiated by our leader, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. Today, IPOB Biafrans living in Asia, we are reminded that today is the 28th day of June 2022. And it happens to be a Tuesday day. We remember that today is our Twitter Tuesday. We must always tweet, because if we follow the trends of events, you see that the British that have subjugated us for hundreds of years, they have exploited our resources, the resources from our land. They are continuing in exploiting them even as at today, as we are talking. That is the reason why we are here in Asia. That is why the people of Biafra, the indigenous people of Biafra, we are sojourning all over the world. Wherever you go, you see our people. It is not because it is a good thing to us. Rather, it is to deplete our culture, to deplete our existence. So we must understand that and work towards the liberation of our people. We must work in synergy with the indigenous people of Biafra. As we have listened to the audio that I have played now, it is about how the British inflated the population census of Nigeria before independence. And it is as a result of that inflation of population giving the giving the population to the north, which is a desert area. So because of that, that is why we, the indigenous people of Biafra, we are suffering today. Therefore, I welcome you once again, the indigenous people of Biafra all over the world, especially those in Asia, those in Malaysia, those in Singapore, those in Indonesia, those in China, those in Thailand, those in Taiwan, all over Asia, all over the world. We thank you for your steadfastness, and also it must be encouraged for being consistent, because that is what our leader have taught us, because we do not have the resources to challenge our oppressors. Rather, what we do is to pinch them where it hurts the most. So that is the reason why we need a collective action to liberate ourselves out of this British creation. Because from the analysis and from the from what I have played earlier, you can understand the intentions of the British. We remember that it is still the same British government that imposed and executed a land and sea blockade using the Fulanese in order to subjugate, in order to kill, in order to take over the resources that is coming from our land. Therefore, you and I, all of us, we have a responsibility to see that we liberate ourselves out of this quagmire, because Nigeria is never for us. Nigeria has never worked for us. Nigeria is a talent killer. Therefore, we, the indigenous people of Biafra in Asia, today being the 28th day of June 2022, we urge all and sundry who are in Biafra land, who can go to Abuja. I know some of our people are already there. We need collective engagement There is no time for campaigning for things that we know that will never give us what we want. People have articulated in the past. People have shouted, say Baba, and some of the Igbo people were the people that were championing it, bringing the Fulanis into our land, crowning them, saying that they are the only people that will give them the presidency. Whereas we, the indigenous people of Biafra, we have already known that there is no how that the Nigerian state will work for the people of Biafra, because Nigeria is a state that was created by the British for self-destruct. That is the reason why you see today there is another Frederick Lugard in Nigeria today. That Frederick Lugard is the British High Commissioner to Nigeria. That lady is the one in charge of all the genocide that is ongoing in Nigeria. That lady, the British foreign, the British High Commissioner to Nigeria. She has been supervising ethnic cleansing in Nigeria. She has been supervising the massacre that is state-sponsored. The Nigerian state has been massacring the people using the terrorist Fulanis. If you go to all the bushes in Nigeria today, you see that the Fulani terrorists has taken over all the bushes. Go to Abia State, go to Imo State, all the eastern region, the Fulanis are trying to occupy our bushes, kidnapping our people and taking ransom from them. But when a little thing happens, you see the murderous Islamic Fulani army are sent to the eastern Biafra land to go and kill and burn communities. But in the north, for instance, in Zamfara, today the governor has told the population to arm themselves and defend themselves. But go to the east, the opposite is the case. They send their military, their security forces to our houses to disarm our people in order to clear the road for the foot soldiers of these Fulani jihadists that are penetrating the hinterland and the southern Nigeria as a whole. Therefore, all of us, we have a duty to protect ourselves. Because as it is now, we may think that it is happening in Zamfara. It is happening in Benue. Look at the way they are kidnapping bishops, Catholic bishops. They are kidnapping high-profile individuals in our land, in our own land. And have we seen any of the governors saying anything about it? Have we seen any of these politicians saying anything about it? Because they use our blood to enrich themselves for their own selfish aggrandizement. That is the reason why before anybody becomes attends any political office in Nigeria, he must go and swear allegiance to the Fulani Caliphate. So this is the reason why after swearing this allegiance, it will only enable them at their time of office to enrich themselves and take care of their personal issues, not to cater for the interests of the population. Our people are suffering. Our people are being killed. Our businesses are targeted. Okay, now people are shouting, go and get your PVC. How does PVC save us from these jihadist encroachment in our different communities? How does the PVC? We have tested, we have been in Nigeria, we supported them for a very long time to a point that we know that there is nothing you can do to redeem this British company, because Nigeria is a British company. We must understand that Nigeria was formerly the Royal Niger Company. When they converged in Berlin, the Europeans, they converged in Berlin in 1885 and 1884. They converged and partitioned Africa. without the consent of the indigenous African people, without the participation of the indigenous African people. They partitioned Africa. They destroyed Biafra. They destroyed Oduduwa land. They destroyed Amazonia. They destroyed the indigenous culture of the Africans, and they imposed upon us their own way of life. And today, we cannot even communicate in our own language without adding the colonial languages to them. So our lives has been destroyed. Our future has been destroyed. Talents in our land have been wasteful for all these decades. Therefore, these are the reasons why we, the indigenous people of Biafra all over the world, we must wake up to see that we walk towards the restoration of Biafra, because our only hope is Biafra freedom. Because when we have our freedom, whereby we have our own constitution that is autochthonous, a constitution that is homegrown, whereby our people will decide on the policy that we want to take, not where a situation whereby someone, you are not allowed to drink beer in your state of residence, whereas the government also shares from the proceeds of these products that are prohibited from being consumed in those specific areas. Therefore, we, the indigenous people of Biafra, we should not sit idle and watch. What we should do is do the little one that you can do. There are people who are in the bush, our Biafra men who are in the bush, making sure that this Fulani encroachment does not arrive to Biafra land. How are we supporting them? If you are not in the bush, you're supposed to be those that are supporting them, giving them the water they need to drink. Because as we are enjoying under our air-conditioned rooms, our brothers, our sisters, our men are inside there in the bush, defending our land. If you see what is going on in Benue, what is going on in Taraba, what is going on all over the Middle Belt, you will appreciate the work of the Eastern Security Network. Look at what is going on. The people that traveled last weekend to Isochi in Abia State, they were kidnapped. The other day, I had a report also that some people from Isugu or Hafia who were going for their meetings, they were also kidnapped. You don't know who it may be tomorrow, because they have turned the terrorists. They have unleashed the terrorists, the Fulani terrorists, the Fulani jihadis that they have recruited from all over the Sahel, from all over Africa, to converge in Nigeria, because their agenda is to fulfill the Uthman Danfodio's estate. So the indigenous people of Biafra all over the world, wherever we are, we must do the needful things. If we are not in the bush defending our land, we do the needful by contributing towards the restoration of Biafra. You can tweet, because nobody carries our news. It is because of the media blockade. That is the reason why in 1967, the British-sponsored genocide on Biafra was not heard by the world. That is, at the end, more than 5 million Biafran people were killed. Therefore, the war has continued in another dimension. If you look at the history, you know that Biafra has existed thousands of years before the advent of colonialism. Therefore, we have every legitimate right under the international law, under the local law, under the domestic laws of Nigeria, even under the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. It is a guaranteed right. Therefore, agitation for the freedom of Biafra is a guaranteed right. We have no reason not to participate. We have no reason not to contribute. We have no reason not to tweet. Go to Twitter. Twitter is free. You register, you tweet. If you cannot tweet, you retweet. All these things are the collective efforts that we must do. Look at the Southern Sudan. They fought two wars of almost 40-something years, and today they are free. Therefore, I urge all of us to do the needful while we come back in a few minutes.
for giving people the sort of government they want.
Those who got in the way were innocent.
It's M. Josh on the beat.
What do? Josh? Huh? Inno, and That's so. I'm gonna get up. What do?
Why are we sweating like Christmas food? Can't NEPA give us light?
My dear, NEPA doesn't give us light. That's why I say we no go better for all Nigerian politicians and leaders who don't lead us since 1960. I said, this nation lacks direction. The politicians lose the confusion. Abomination done to tradition. Abomination done to tradition. Nigeria leaders them confused like people who don't go low. They go their abada say they fight corruption. People will not get primary certificate, oh, them the rule professors, oh. They go their abada say they fight corruption, oh. Hunger day, insurgency day, insecurity everywhere, oh. They go their abada say they fight corruption, oh. La 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 la, la la. And when they don't ready to, wine Nigerians, and they rewind Nigerians and composition Nigerians, then you will see them appear with a smiling gutter media. By then, they will come appear for front of your television and they tell you rubbish stuff. And this is the news headline of the day. EFCC recovers $321 million Abacha loot. Another 319 million looted funds discovered by EFCC. Suppose $500 million Abacha loot recovered by EFCC missing. They discover Abacha loot. Abacha loot. They recover Abacha loot. Abacha loot. All Abacha loot. Abacha loot. See Abacha loot. Abacha loot. Discover Abacha loot. Abacha loot. They recover Abacha loot. Abacha loot. Here is Abacha loot. Because we know see Abacha loot. Abacha loot. What go? Josh. bring it up. After 33 years of intensive research, Director General of Raw Material Research and Development Council of Nigeria, he don't talk say Nigeria, it don't finally discover machine where they will make they produce plenty cliche. A big Nigerian government in a Yahoo, Nigerian government in a Yahoo, a big Buhari government in a Yahoo, Nigerian government in a Yahoo, Magu don't catch Magu, EFCC na Yahoo, Nigerian government in a Yahoo, them say Vice President of Nigeria, he follow for the Yahoo, Nigerian government in a Yahoo, $200 million cash, 78 million euro cash, Nigerian government in a Yahoo, 22 billion naira cash, 98 gold wristwatches, worth of $22 million. Now he the discover for EFCC house, for EFCC bedroom. Nigerian government in a Yahoo, our EFCC, it gets 380 mansions worldwide.
All right. I want to round up because this is just a very short reminder that today is IPOB Worldwide Twitter Tuesday, and whatever you are doing, wherever you are, if you are a Biafran, if you are an indigenous person in Nigeria being killed, being subjugated, being kidnapped by the state-sponsored Fulani jihadists, you must join the indigenous people of Biafra to seek for a separate self-determination through the instrumentalities of the international law. There is no point for us to continue to do the same thing again and again and expect to have a different result. So that is the reason why we, the indigenous people of Biafra, we are urged to converge at the Federal High Court today to witness the proceedings of the litigation between the Nigerian state and the Biafran people. Therefore, we urge you to go to Twitter. We urge you to go to Facebook, propagate the message of Biafra. Also participate at the ongoing call to the BBC as initiated by the indigenous people of Biafra, by the leadership of the IPOB, that we must call the BBC, and they ask them questions concerning the genocide that is being carried out by the British government, because the British High Commissioner has assumed power as if she is the president of Nigeria. She has been going from state to state, meeting people, telling them the importance of keeping Nigeria one, whereas keeping Nigeria one is to continue the enslavement of the indigenous people that have been trapped under the claws of the Fulani jihadism. Therefore, what we are asking all and sundry is to participate in the Biafra restoration. Nigeria can never work. Peter Obi can never save Nigeria. Tinubu can never save Nigeria. Or is it Atiku Abubakar, the one that have sold all the Nigerian assets when he was the vice president of Nigeria? Therefore, we, the indigenous people of Biafra, we make haze while the sun shines. That is why we see ahead of others. There is no point hoping that somehow that Peter Obi will win and become the president of Nigeria, even though by mistake he becomes the president. It will even be worse than the previous. It is only in Nigeria that you see that your past is better than your today. Those who lived in the 60s, they enjoyed more than those who are living today. The only difference is that we have the telephones, the communication that they do not have, because at that point in time, it usually takes them months before messages could pass through. But here today, I am here in Asia, I speak, someone in Ohafia will listen to me. Therefore, we have every reason, we have all the logistics, we have all the resources to see that we are free from the claws of this jihadism that is approaching with its virulent nature. Therefore, the indigenous people of Biafra, today is the Tuesday, Twitter Tuesday. Go to Twitter and join others to do the needful, because nobody will tell our stories, only we, you and I, collectively, we march towards the freedom of our people. It may look difficult. Yes, freedom is never an easy task. Freedom costs you things. Freedom costs you money. Freedom costs you material things. Freedom costs you your time. Freedom also takes life. There are those who have paid the ultimate price. So this is the reason why we must not wait until we are kidnapped. So I want to read what this our brother Elochukwu Ahaji wrote, and it is a reminder of what our leader have been saying. He said, government-backed Fulani harassment terrorists kidnapping Igbo people in the east with eastern governors and Ohanese in deep silence. You know that these eastern governors, politicians, all of them, it is their wish that Nigeria continues so that they continue to enrich themselves with their families. I continue to read. This is by Elochukwu Ahaji. He said, the Fulani harassment terrorists have taken strategic positions in the southeast forests, kidnapping Igbo people and taking huge ransom from them. Even the people they kidnapped, they proudly show them where they are dumping the corpses of those they killed, simply because they couldn't pay their ransom. According to a high priest that was kidnapped some time ago, the pit is huge, with flies making voo sounds around there, signaling decomposing dead bodies in their large quantities. Igbo people have been disappearing without traces, and the government is silent because no one really cares. Their job as governors has been made too simple because we have educated illiterates with little knowledge of what governance is. These things are not happening in Zamfara or Sokoto, but in Imo State and Abia State. Fulani herdsmen left their region to the region of the Igbo, camped there to be kidnapping the Igbo for ransom, brandishing dangerous weapons and shooting directly at motorists. Just last 2 weeks, 2 lecturers coming out from Spiritan University were kidnapped. The Fulani herdsmen that kidnapped them forced open fire on their vehicle, not minding that they can kill those lecturers instantly. They told them same thing. They told the Methodist prelates, and I quote, "We are just waiting for signal so that we can take over Igbo land." They are building up for war, and the people, these things are happening in their lands, are not worried or perturbed. The Methodist prelate paid 100 million to secure his freedom, while the lecturer and the lady lecturer who pretended to be a student paid 12 million and 2.5 million naira respectively. Who will be next? Probably when it reaches the turn of the politicians or the people takes laws into their hands, you will see useless emotions flying up and down. The Fulani is preparing for war, a jihad, which they call Holy War. Don't forget that late Obadiah Lafia, former deputy governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, said that Fulani are preparing for civil war. Don't forget, he also said they are already in the south. Are you not seeing it already? Those they kidnapped have said that their kidnappers are Fulani people working with some Nigerian soldiers. Yet, nothing is happening. Nobody is against them. The soldiers on checkpoint has been fingered as those aiding the collection of the ransom. These things have been happening for more than 4 months now. Yet, no military, police, or air force have gone there to sack them. Even the villagers that threatened to comb the said forest were stopped by the military. But to everybody's surprise, these same soldiers are moving against Eastern Security Network, a security outfit established to confront Fulani herdsmen terrorists. Why are the soldiers not against Fulani herdsmen terrorists terrorizing Igbo in Igbo land? The answer is very simple. They have the support of the government. Don't forget that at the inception of APC, they changed all head of security chiefs to their Fulani people. So, for the past 8 years, the Fulani has been in charge of security in Nigeria. The result became the aiding of Fulani herdsmen terrorists in their conquering Fulani agenda and taking over land belonging to indigenous people. The arrest and illegal detention of voices speaking up against these atrocities being committed by the Fulani herdsmen terrorists are part of the plan by Nigerian government to subdue the people and open up the road for Fulani takeover. Since Ruga and grazing reserves failed, they have vowed to do it the rough way. Don't forget that in certain places, helicopter has been sighted dropping food and weapons for the Fulani herdsmen terrorists. That they have government backing is an open secret, which the people will always want to pretend such doesn't exist. This kidnapping in Igbo land has been going on without a single Igbo governor, senators, or even Ohaneze Ndi Igbo saying a word against it. That same people, that is the same people that will first blackmail and accuse IPOB wrongly. These are same men that proscribed IPOB and brought in Nigerian soldiers to kill their own youths in the name of Operation Python Dance. Now, Fulani herdsmen terrorists are camped in their own land, kidnapping, killing, and taking huge ransom from their own people, and none of them had the balls to speak up, not to talk of proscribing them and sending soldiers after them. This is how pathetic the situation of the Igbo people have become. For the past 40 years, the Igbo has been ruled by sellouts who only care about how to please their slave masters. They are now attacking ESN and IPOB from every corner. Men and women from Igbo land have been arrested and imprisoned without trials. Their offense is wearing a Biafra color on the day of their birthday. But Fulani kidnappers are walking free and killing and wiping off villages. If care is not taken, by the time they must have taken enough ransom from our people and acquired enough weapons, they will move against our people, kill lots of our people in a bid to take over our lands. Don't say it won't happen, because Fulani has done it in many places. They did it in DR Congo, did it in Hausa land, and attempted in many other places like Mali and Ghana. The I don't care attitude of Igbo people today was what Hausa people exhibited, and today their lands have been taken. Entire Middle Belt will soon be taken, and they will soon try their luck in the East. Written by Elochukwu Ohaji, a philosopher and a teacher and activist. So, this is not just saying, this is true. This is true. So this is what is happening on a daily basis all over our land. When you are in Asia, when you travel home, you may be driving. Someone will just jump out of nowhere and start shooting direct at you. Very risky. So these are the reasons why we agitate for our freedom, whereby we will establish a sane society that is quite direct opposite of what is obtainable in Nigeria. Therefore, I'm coming to conclusion. Therefore, we urge you all to join the indigenous people of Biafra wherever you are to contribute towards the restoration of Biafra, because we have no other hope except the freedom of Biafra. Nigeria can never work. Nigeria was not created to work. Nigeria was created for self-destruct. Nigeria was created to furnish the economic quest of the Europeans. Therefore, you and I have the responsibility to restore our dignity by ourselves, because the people you call the politicians, they are not there for our own interest. Therefore, you and I, we must strive to see that our own children unborn shall not suffer what we are suffering today. Go to every part of the world. We are everywhere. We are sojourning, passing through a lot of things. Go to the streets in Asia, you see our men on the streets. They are not married. They have no children. Some of them don't even have girlfriends, not to talk of having children. And they are almost getting 40s. So this is a very big challenge. All over the world, we are begging old women to marry us. Imagine that. It is because of the British plan, which started long time ago and was officially inaugurated in 1959 through a census figure fraud. So therefore, as we wait for a victory today on the court case of our leader, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, like our head of Directorate of State said, Mazi Chika Edoziem, said that while going to the court, we should be careful, because the murderous Nigerian state will always wait in order to pounce on our people. Therefore, I thank you for being with me for this short period of time. Do not forget to tweet. Do not forget to create a Twitter account. It costs nothing. It costs nothing to tweet. You don't know the impact of your tweeting. You don't know the impact of the retweet that you are doing. Some people say, is it like this that you are going to get your freedom? We are getting our freedom because we are taking the necessary steps. We have litigations all over the world, whereby at the end, we shall arrive at our destination. Thank you. My name remains Mazi Kalu from the IPOB Asia family. Oh, hey, Biafra. God bless us. He said,
Why are we sweating like Christmas gold? Can't NEPA give us light?
My dear, NEPA doesn't give us light, oh. That's why I say we no go better for all Nigerian politicians and leaders who don't lead us since 1960. Hashem, definition, not direction. The politicians push confusion, abomination done to tradition, abomination done to tradition. Nigeria leaders them confused like people who don't go low. Then Korea Abada say they fight corruption. People will not get primary certificate, oh, them the rule professors, CEO. Then Korea Abada say they fight corruption, oh. Hunger day, insurgency day, insecurity everywhere, oh. Korea Abada say they fight corruption, oh.
Back in the 1950s, Harold Smith, an idealistic young Oxford graduate,
when they come ready to, wine Nigerians, and they rewind Nigerians and composition Nigerians, then you will see them appear with a smiling gutter media. By then, they will come appear for front of your television and they tell you rubbish stuff. And this is the news headline of the day. EFCC recovers $321 million Abacha loot. Another 319 million looted funds discovered by EFCC. Suppose $500 million Abacha loot recovered by EFCC missing. They discover Abacha loot. Abacha loot. Recover Abacha loot. Abacha loot.